Hey, everybody, and welcome to a deep dive that might just change the way you watch basketball forever.
That's right. We're going deep beneath the surface of the game this time.
We're talking about the fundamentals, the building blocks, the thing that every single great player masters. It's all about footwork.
Exactly. And to guide us on this deep dive, we've got the Complete Basketball Coach's Guide to Footwork Balance and Pivoting.
So this is like our playbook for understanding what's really happening on the court.
Think of it that way because we're going to decode those moves, break down the strategies, and really see how much footwork impacts every aspect of the game.
Now, I'll admit I'm more of a casual fan. I see a great dunk or a crazy three-pointer. I'm on my feet cheering.
Of course.
But this guide is making me realize there's a whole other level of strategy I've been completely missing.
It's like watching a magic show and only seeing the final illusion.
Right. We see the amazing results, but we don't see the subtle techniques that make it all possible.
And that's what we're going to uncover today, the importance of footwork in basketball. So convince me, why is footwork so important? Is it really more than just running fast and jumping high?
It's so much more. It's the difference between a player looking clumsy and out of control and a player who seems to glide effortlessly across the court.
So it's about efficiency, making every movement count.
Exactly. And it all comes down to positioning, because where you place your feet determines if you can get open for a shot, if you can box out your defender for a rebound, if you can make those seemingly impossible passes.
Okay, so it's not just about athleticism, it's about strategy and technique.
Absolutely. Footwork is the foundation for everything else in basketball.
Got it. So give me an example from the guide that really illustrates this.
Let's talk about pivoting.
Pivoting.
Yeah, most people think of dribbling or shooting as like the most basic basketball skills, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But this book argues that pivoting is even more essential.
Okay, so remind me, what is pivoting again?
It's that move where you plant one foot and use it as an anchor to turn your body.
Oh, right. So you can change directions without traveling.
Exactly. And it seems simple, but that's kind of the beauty of it.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's the building block for so many other moves. Imagine you're receiving an inbounds pass.
All right, I'm with you.
Depending on whether you're about to shoot or pass, immediately you need to pivot on a specific foot.
So you're instantly in the right position.
No wasted movement, just pure efficiency.
Wow. So even before the ball is in your hands, your feet are already dictating the play.
You got it.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, what about on defense? Does footwork matter as much there?
Absolutely. Think about boxing out for rebounds.
Right, that's where you use your body to block your opponent from getting the rebound.
Exactly. And the guide describes this technique called fanning, which uses your arms and legs like a fan to create space and seal off your opponent.
Fanning, I like that. So it's not just about being big and strong, it's about using your body and your feet strategically.
Right. It's about positioning yourself correctly and then holding that position.
So I guess if I'm understanding this right, good footwork means you're more likely to grab that rebound even if you're not the tallest player on the court.
That's the idea.
This is blowing my mind. Okay, so we've talked about pivoting for passes and rebounds. What else does the guide highlight when it comes to the importance of footwork?
Well, believe it or not, even those amazing offensive moves like you see from the pros rely on precise footwork.
Really? Like what kind of moves?
Well, the book describes specific moves like the Olajuwon whirl, named after Hakeem Olajuwon,
Wait, hold on. As in the Hakeem Olajuwon, the Hall of Famer.
the one and only.
So even the legends of the game are relying on these fundamental footwork techniques.
Exactly. It's not just for beginners. It's for everyone.
Wow. Okay, so tell me more about this Olajuwon whirl. What is it?
Picture this. You're in the post with your back to the basket,
Okay, I'm picturing it.
and you spin on your pivot foot, almost like a ballet dancer, losing your defender and creating space for a shot.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It takes practice, but it's all about those precise foot movements.
Man, I can barely walk and chew gum at the same time, let alone spin like Hakeem Olajuwon. But I'm starting to see how these techniques can be so effective.
And it's not just about scoring.
Really?
Tell me more. Even passing relies heavily on footwork.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
It's not just standing there and flinging the ball. You have to use your feet to escape pressure from defenders, to create passing lanes, and to deliver that ball right on target.
So all those amazing passes we see where the player somehow threads the needle through a crowd of defenders, that's not just luck, or arm strength.
It's footwork.
Footwork is like the secret ingredient to everything in basketball.
It's the foundation.
So I'm guessing coaches are spending a lot of time teaching these footwork techniques.
They are, and this guide goes into great detail about the drills and strategies coaches use to develop these skills.
Like what kind of drills?
They start with the basics, of course, things like pivoting and stepping, but then they build up to more complex drills that simulate game situations.
Okay, so it's not just about practicing the moves in isolation. It's about learning how to use them in the flow of a real game.
Exactly, and one of the drills that really stood out to me is called mass ball handling and pivoting.
Mass ball handling and pivoting. That sounds intense.
It is. It involves multiple players, and it's designed to mimic the chaos and pressure of a real game.
So it's like controlled chaos.
Exactly. Players have to make decisions on the fly, react to defenders communicate with their teammates, all while using precise footwork.
Man, that sounds like a real test. So it's like they're taking all those individual pieces of footwork and putting them together to create a masterpiece on the court.
You got it. And that brings us to some really fascinating insights into how coaches think about player development.
Okay, now I'm really interested. What are the coaches really looking for when they're watching these drills?
It's not just about making baskets, it's about the process.
What do you mean by that?
They're watching to see if the players are using the correct footwork, if they're maintaining their balance, if they're staying aware of their surroundings.
So it's not just about the end result, it's about how they get there.
Exactly.
Interesting. Any other coaching secrets you can share?
Well, one of the teaching methods the book highlights is called the whole part, whole approach.
Whole part, whole. Never heard of it.
It's a really clever way to break down complex skills. First, they show the full play. Then they break it down into individual roles and techniques. And finally, they put it all back together.
So it's like learning how to bake a cake.
Right.
You start by seeing the finished product, then you learn about each ingredient and step, and then finally you put it all together to create the whole cake.
Exactly.
That's a great way to explain it. And that's actually a useful approach for learning anything, not just basketball.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the big picture and the individual components.
This has been eye-opening. I already feel like I'm watching basketball with a new perspective.
That's the goal.
Before we go too far down this path, I think we need to call a timeout and wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Agreed. Join us next time as we continue to break down the strategies and techniques behind effective basketball footwork.
We'll be exploring even more drills and coaching insights that'll have you seeing the game in a whole new light. Until then, keep those minds curious and those feet moving. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to dive back into the fascinating world of basketball footwork.
And last time we saw how pivoting is like the secret code that unlocks everything else in the game.
Right. It's like the foundation that all those fancy moves are built on.
And today we're going to explore how coaches actually train their players to master that code.
Okay, so we're getting into the minds of the coaches now.
Exactly. And this guide really emphasizes that it's not just about drills and diagrams.
It's about the human element, too.
Exactly. A coach's attitude can make all the difference.
That makes sense. You could have the best playbook in the world, but if the coach isn't inspiring, it's not going to translate to the court.
You need that passion.
So what does the book say about the ideal coaching approach when it comes to footwork?
Well, it all starts with creating an environment where the players are motivated to learn.
Right, because let's be honest, footwork isn't always the most glamorous part of basketball.
It's not the highlight reel stuff.
So how do you get players excited about it?
The coach has to be excited about it.
Ah, so enthusiasm is contagious.
Exactly. If the coach is passionate about footwork and they can explain why it's so important, the players are more likely to buy in.
That makes sense. So a coach who's genuinely geeking out about pivots and steps is going to be more inspiring than a coach who's just going through the motions.
100%.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of coaching. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about footwork for shooting, because I'm guessing this guide isn't just about big men in the paint, right?
Not at all. Footwork is just as crucial for guards and forwards.
Really? So no matter what position you play, your feet are involved in every shot.
It all starts with your base.
Okay, so give me an example. How does footwork come into play when a player is taking a shot?
Well, imagine a drill where a player has to cut to the basket, catch a pass, and then shoot, all while under pressure from a defender.
That sounds pretty realistic.
It is. They're not just standing still. They're moving their feet, getting into the right position, squaring up to the basket.
So they're building muscle memory for those game-like situations.
Exactly. And the book has a ton of drills specifically for practicing shooting footwork.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, there's the one-man dot shots drill, where a player practices catching a pass and then making a quick decision whether to shoot, use a shot fake, or dribble.
So it's not just about shooting mechanics, it's about decision-making and reacting to the defender.
It's about putting it all together.
Are there any other drills that stood out to you?
Well, this one's a classic. It's called the Mikan drill.
The Mikan drill?
Yeah, named after George Mikan, one of the early pioneers of the game.
Oh, wow, I've heard of him. He was like a giant back in his day.
He was, and this drill involves a lot of layups alternating between your left and right hand.
So it's working on both sides of your body?
Exactly, and it's great for developing ambidexterity and coordination.
So no more favoring your dominant hand.
Got to be able to score with either foot.
Okay, so we've covered layups. What about free throws? I mean, those can make or break a game.
Oh, absolutely. And the book had some interesting ideas about how to practice free throws.
Oh, like what?
Well, instead of just having players shoot free throws in isolation, it suggests incorporating rebounding drills at the same time.
Rebounding drills during free throw practice.
Yeah, it sounds a little unconventional, but it makes a lot of sense.
Well, explain it to me.
So while one player is shooting free throws, the other players are practicing boxing out and grabbing rebounds.
Ah, so you're basically simulating a game situation.
Right, because in a real game, those free throws are often followed by a scramble for the rebound.
That's actually really clever.
It's efficient, too, because you're working on multiple skills at the same time.
This is making me realize that there's so much more to basketball than just dribbling and shooting.
There's a whole layer of strategy and technique that most people don't even notice.
It's like a secret language.
And we're here to decode it.
All right, let's keep going with this decoding process because we've talked about pivoting, passing, and shooting. But there's one more key element we haven't discussed yet.
Rebounding.
Okay, so let's talk rebounding. What does the guide say about footwork for rebounding?
This might be the most underrated aspect of the game when it comes to footwork.
Really? Because I always thought rebounding was all about being tall and athletic.
Height and jumping ability definitely help, but they're not the whole story.
So what's the missing piece?
Technique and positioning.
And those both come down to footwork.
You got it. One of the key concepts the book emphasizes is boxing out.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that, but to be honest, I never really understood what it meant.
It's basically using your body to create space between you and your opponent.
And that helps you get the rebound.
Exactly. Imagine the shot goes up, and instead of just jumping for the ball, you plant your feet firmly between your opponent and the basket.
You're essentially blocking them out.
That's the idea, and it all starts with footwork.
So you're claiming your territory before the ball even comes down.
Precisely. And the book goes into all sorts of different boxing out techniques.
Like what?
Well, it depends on where you are in relation to the shooter and the basket.
Oh, so there are different strategies.
There are, for example, if you're guarding the person who took the shot, the guide recommends a front pivot step.
A front pivot step.
Yeah, so you pivot on the foot closest to the basket and step quickly into their loft.
That sounds pretty effective.
It is. And then if you're guarding someone further away from the basket, the book suggests a reverse pivot.
So many pivots. I'm starting to see why this book is all about footwork.
It really is the foundation.
Okay, so let's say you've successfully boxed out your opponent. What happens next? Is it just a mad grab for the ball?
Not quite. The book also talks about proper footwork for securing the rebound and making the next play.
So it doesn't stop there.
They talk about chinning the ball, which is bringing it up close to your chin to protect it,
Okay.
and then using a pivot to turn away from pressure and find an open teammate.
So you're not just grabbing the ball, you're already thinking about the next pass.
It's all connected.
I'm telling you, this footwork stuff is blowing my mind.
Remember, this is important on both offense and defense.
So whether you're trying to score or prevent the other team from scoring, footwork is key.
Absolutely. And the book has a whole bunch of drills specifically for practicing rebounding footwork.
I bet they're intense.
Some of them are, but they're all designed to develop those essential skills.
Man, this is making me want to get out on the court and start practicing.
Me too.
Yeah.
And remember, all of this is not just about individual skills. It's also about how these skills fit into the bigger picture of team play.
Right? Because basketball is a team sport.
Exactly. And the guide goes into some great drills that involve multiple players and really simulate the complexity of a real game.
Like that mass ball handling and pivoting drill we talked about earlier.
That's a great example. Yeah. It forces players to think on their feet, communicate with their teammates, and adapt to ever-changing situations.
So it's like a controlled chaos that prepares them for the real thing.
Exactly. And there are plenty of other drills like that in the book.
We could probably do a whole deep dive just on basketball drills.
We probably could. But for now, I think we need to start wrapping up this part of our exploration of footwork.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're in the final stretch of our exploration of basketball footwork.
And we've covered a lot of ground already, from pivoting and passing to shooting.
Right, but there's one crucial aspect of the game we haven't tackled yet, and that's rebounding.
And trust me, when it comes to rebounding, footwork is absolutely essential.
Okay, I'm intrigued because I always thought rebounding was mostly about being tall and being able to jump high.
Those things definitely help, no doubt about it. But what separates the average rebounders from the elite is their positioning and their technique.
Okay.
And guess what underpins both of those things?
Tell me it's footwork again.
It is. This guide really emphasizes a concept called boxing out.
Boxing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that term thrown around, but if I'm being honest, I've never really understood what it meant.
Well, it sounds a little intimidating, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of like something out of a boxing ring.
But it's actually more about strategy and leverage than brute force.
Okay, explain it to me.
So picture this, the shot goes up, right?
Okay.
And instead of just jumping for the ball, you immediately plant your feet firmly between your opponent and the basket.
You're like creating a wall.
Exactly. You're using your body as a barrier to prevent them from getting to the rebound.
So it's all about establishing position.
And it all starts with footwork. You're claiming that space before the ball even comes down.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about hoping to out-jump everyone else, it's about using your feet to gain an advantage.
Exactly. And this guide gets really specific about different boxing out techniques.
Really?
It matters where you are in relation to the shooter in the basket.
Oh, so there are different strategies depending on the situation.
Absolutely. For instance, if you're guarding the person who took the shot, the guide recommends a move called the front pivot step.
Front pivot step.
You pivot on your foot that's closest to the basket and quickly step into their path.
To block them out.
That's it. And then if you're guarding someone who's further away from the basket, they suggest a reverse pivot.
So many pivots. My head is spinning.
It can get pretty complex, but that's why it's so important to practice these techniques.
So you can react instinctively in a game situation.
Exactly. Okay, so let's say you've successfully boxed out your opponent. What happens next?
Well, I guess you jump up and grab the rebound, right?
Well, there's a little more to it than that.
Oh, there always is.
The book also talks about using proper footwork to secure that rebound once you've got it.
Interesting.
They talk about chinning the ball,
Chinning.
bringing the ball up close to your chin to protect it,
Okay, that makes sense.
and then using a pivot to turn away from any pressure and find an open teammate for that outlet pass.
Wow. So it's not just about grabbing the ball, it's about protecting it and already thinking about the next play.
It's all connected.
You know what? I'm noticing a theme here.
What's up?
Footwork is like the common thread that runs through every aspect of basketball.
You got it.
Yeah.
And it's just as important for rebounding as it is for shooting and passing.
Whether you're on offense or defense.
Exactly. And the book goes into a bunch of different drills for practicing rebounding footwork.
Of course there are drills.
There are drills for everything. But these drills are really designed to help players develop those quick reactions, that spatial awareness, and that overall technique.
So they can dominate the boards.
And remember, it's not just about individual skills. It's about how all these individual skills come together in a team setting.
Right, because ultimately basketball is a team sport.
Exactly. And that's why the book also talks about drills that involve multiple players and simulate those game-like situations.
Like that mass ball handling and pivoting drill we talked about earlier.
Exactly. That's a great example of a drill that forces players to think on their feet and work together as a unit.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces of the puzzle fit together.
And it all comes back to footwork.
Well, I have to say, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me.
I'm glad to hear that.
I feel like I can watch a basketball game now and actually understand what's happening on a deeper level.
That's the goal. We wanted to give you a glimpse behind the curtain, so to speak, and show you the importance of those fundamental skills.
Mission accomplished.
And remember, the next time you're watching a game, don't just focus on the ball.
Keep an eye on those feet.
Exactly. You might be surprised by what you see.
Well, folks, there you have it, a deep dive into the fascinating and often overlooked world of basketball footwork.
We've gone from basic pivots to complex team drills, and we've seen how footwork impacts every aspect of the game.
And we've learned that it's not just about athleticism, it's about strategy technique and those tiny details that can make all the difference.
Whether you're a seasoned player, a coach, or just a fan, we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the importance of footwork in basketball.
And remember, the principles we've discussed today apply to so much more than just basketball. Whether you're learning a new skill, pursuing a hobby, or just trying to improve in any area of your life, mastering the fundamentals is key.
Practice makes perfect.
So until next time, keep those minds curious and those feet moving.